This is Drake here. I was coming back with another Path of Exile 2 video. I was going to go over I guess you would say a monk kind of build guide. Not really a build guide because I feel like this game has so much variety. You can kind of build it however you want to, and I'm not going to say my build is any better or worse than anyone else's, and a lot of it's probably copied from watching other creators, to be honest about the matter. But there was a few things I did, and I've watched a lot of other videos, and there's a lot of like in-game builds, but not a lot of telling the best way to get there and skills that you'll invest in along the way that kind of fall off, or you just don't get as much bang for your buck in the end game. So I was going to try to go over kind of my progression guide, I guess you would say, and currently I'm at probably the middle ways of Act 3 of Cruel difficulty, so the build's coming along pretty good, but there's just a few things along the way that could help, I guess you would say. Let's see. First thing I would say, I mean, I went over this a little bit in my other video, but you kind of want to prioritize. For me, the best thing I've got is evasion and energy shield. And all my gear is getting kind of out leveled because I haven't found anything better yet. I've been running this for quite some time. As you can see, I'm level 64, and my gear is like level 40. 40s and 50s, 30s, some 20s, some even lower than that. So I mean, gear has been the issue for me, but so far I haven't struggled at all. I'm kind of just breezing through Cruel difficulty. But yeah, I would prioritize evasion and energy shield because Monk has a lot of passives that really benefit this, and I've come to really enjoy energy shield because it's come to be one of my mainstays, and there's a lot of good skills that go into it. But skills. All right, we'll start out with the basics, I guess. All right, yeah, quick tip. I just actually started doing this. I bought these. You can buy these from the trade website to organize your skill gems and your crafting materials and your upgrade runes and stuff like that. And man, it makes life so much simpler. And if you bought the early access, you actually have at least 300 currency anyway, so you can buy this for no extra. You just literally have to go into the microtransaction shop and go to this page, the tabs page, and makes life so much easier. Like, I can't believe I went through the whole game without doing it. But yeah, I mean, you'll start out with like support gems too. There goes the phone beeping. Oh, that's a support gem, my bad. The lowest we've got is 5. Okay,
Frozen
we'll start out with
locusts
5.
will explode when attacked by you or your enemies.
Now this is what I kind of started out with. You start out with base, and one of the first, of course, you get Falling Thunder early.
Falling Thunder is a lightning area
Wish I could turn that off.
If you have power charges,
Falling Thunder is really good, and I'm still kind of trying to build into it.
Damage and create.
But the
Ice Strike is a combo of 3 staggering palm.
What really got me through the early games is Glacial Cascade
that ends with a powerful spike of ice.
Because
hitting a frozen target with
one of the first range damage you get and does really good. Basically carried me through Act 1 and Act 2. You wind up using this
with a powerful spike of ice.
Basically all the time. Of course, you need Killing Palm to get.
With Killing Palm equipped,
monsters
will display these blue indicators.
Toggle video. There we go. Okay. All right. Yeah, with Killing Palm, you need that charges for Falling Thunder, and Falling Thunder will be your highest DPS, like Act 1's Act 2. Get Tempest Bell as early as possible, and you throw it down. But that's kind of it. And then Act 1, Act 2, and I use Frozen Locust quite a bit. It's really good for like freezing stuff, and it's an evade backwards. Just gives you another way to put out a little DPS. But that's Act 1. Act 2, you'll still be kind of weak. And honestly, Monk feels kind of bad in Act 1 and Act 2 until you find some of these skills that like help you evade, because it's pretty squishy, to be honest, when you first start out. And actually, in like Act 2, I'd used Unearth a lot. I really like this for any corpses that you could hit, and I didn't really invest into it. But you can summon little helpers, and for like Act 2 into early Act 3, they're really good just for a distraction. Just throw them out there and the enemies will target them most of the time instead of you. It really helps, and as many enemies as you kill through level, cast this out and you can summon like up to 10 at a time. And yeah, they just serve as a really good distraction. They don't do a whole lot of damage, but it just helps keep the enemy's attention off of you. And for me, Act 2, Act 3 is really when you start, or when I started feeling a little bit of the difficulty of the game. And this kind of helped, like I said, just as a distraction. But after that, like, after you get to Act 3 and you get a little higher stuff, you'll start getting, like, once you get to 5, you'll start getting a little better skills. And then you got to make a decision. Do you want Tempest Flurry, which I run, or do you want Ice Strike? Now, I will say Ice Strike is probably a little easier because it has a lower intellect, lower dex requirements at higher levels, and it's not quite as mana hungry as Tempest Flurry is, and Freeze is one of the best ways to generate power charges as you get later on. But I just didn't really like it myself. It just feels a little slow, a little clunky in my opinion. But that's like, if you want a really easy way early to generate your power charges quickly, I would say Ice Strike. But I think as far as for me, the DPS is higher with Tempest Flurry, but you really need to have some gear that has some flat cold damage on it to generate your power charges through Freeze. But we'll get to that in a second. And then the next thing, like, and once you pick these two, you've kind of, like, I hate to say it, but you kind of build your build around these two. One of these two will be your main DPS output. This paired with this on your Tempest Bell, and that's where you kind of get into your passive skill tree. Now passives, now mine's not a set in stone, you don't have to follow this, but I've kind of mimicked other people's builds and stuff like that. But what you want to get to is this one here, the Resonance, which everybody's probably running it in some shape, form, or fashion for Monk, but you gain power charges instead of frenzy charges. And what that allows you to do is run the Combat Frenzy, which changes every time you freeze something, you get a frenzy charge, and then the passive converts that into power charges, so you can passively start gaining power charges just from freezing people. And one thing I didn't understand, and I wish it would, I guess you can read it in the description, but I had a little trouble with it to begin with. Combat Frenzy says when you freeze, electrocute, or pin. Alright, if you go into the info, you would think that your lightning skills electrocute. No, they don't. Not most of them. Only lightning damage from hits with specific skills or effects contribute to electrocution. Your lightning does shock, and shock doesn't count on this skill, so you're mainly proccing it from freeze. Now, once you get like level 3 support gems, you can change it over to electrocute, but none of your lightning skills really do it passively. So you're kind of stuck with, that's why Ice Strike is better for generating power charges, because you're freezing stuff more consistently. Now, my solution to this was I started running Wave of Frost. Now, Wave of Frost isn't a high damage, but it has a very, as you can see, it's got 275% freeze buildup. It is a very high freeze buildup. So this was my solution to it, the way for me to generate freeze easily. And honestly, I've come to like it a lot. And what you'll do is just, it's like a backwards ice slam, but do this at the open of any group, freeze the ones that's running at you in place, which gives you a little time to breathe, and then you will get and if you run the, if you run the supports in it, you get additional, not that, sorry. If you run in Combat Frenzy here, you can run this too, and supports have a 50% chance to gain additional charge. So every time you proc a freeze on Wave of Frost, you have a 50% chance of getting 2. And then you're using this to power Charge Staff. Charge Staff is going to be one of your best DPS skills after you get this put together to where you can keep consistently up. And then in this you can run extended duration, sorry, and also a 35% chance not to remove charges. So there's a lot of times that you'll generate extra charges and not consume charges. So sometimes you can just freeze one thing and get your full stack of charges by reusing, because these skills proc pretty often. And that's kind of the combo I run. The Combat Frenzy, fueling the charge staff, fueled by the Wave of Frost, and I have some other skills I'll show here in a second, and then feeding into Storm Wave, or not Storm Wave, but Tempest Flurry. And honestly, I haven't been using Falling Thunder much. When I need to get better power charges too. I want to use this as like a backup for when I get in. I need some really quick, because it's probably the best DPS skill you have. As you can see, it does 320%. 26% attack damage, as opposed to Tempest Flurry doing 140% attack. So it's really high. And Storm Wave is really good. Like, that's the other thing. Once you get high enough, Storm Wave will replace your Glacial Cascade. Like, this is a lot more DPS than Glacial Cascade, but it has lower freezing potential. So you'll still need to run Wave of Frost to have some sort of easy freeze potential. And I'm just going to kind of go over these. I guess you can pause or screenshot if you need to. I'm not going to try to go over every bit of it, because just this game is so much to it. All right, and then the other one that you really want to, and you have to have spirits run these. As you can see, this is 30 spirit, this is 30 spirit, and this one's 30 spirit. So before you get in Act 3, your permanent spirit buffs, these are kind of hard or out of reach. That's why this becomes an Act 3 thing. But I've been running Herald of Thunder for a while, and what this does is just every time you shock, as while active, killing shocked enemies with attack damage will cause subsequent attack hits to release lightning bolts, which deal attack damage to all surrounding enemies. Now this happens basically all the time, because we're shocking everything, we're freezing everything. And honestly, this is one of the best area clears that I've got so far. Now if you're running the frozen staff, you can go with Herald of Ice instead of Herald of Thunder. Basically the same thing. Every time you kill a frozen enemy, it will explode and do basically the same AoE damage around it. Neither one are great bossing skills, but you know, if you've played the game to this point, you'll know that usually area clear is harder than boss clear because of the amount of mobs that you can get into. But that's it. These are the three that you'll want to focus on to try to keep your charge staff active as much as possible. Just charge staff, Combat Frenzy, and as far as I know, you don't really have to level up Combat Frenzy. It doesn't make any difference, because it just generates power charges. And I might have to look into that. I don't know if leveling up makes it generate power charges more often. I might have to look into that. But yeah, as far as I know, leveling up does nothing. Herald of Thunder is really good, but a really high dex requirement. As you can see right now, at level 13, it's 119 dex requirement. So you'll really have to start pumping into the dex to get this active. And let's see, what else was it? Lord, there's just so much to go over on this game. Oh, and then you'll start wanting to get into your passives a little bit. Now, if you haven't, you can do the trials of, and I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, I'm sure, but Secumus or whatever. You can get your first few invoker skills and then do the trials of chaos. I didn't really have trouble with them. I haven't done the third round of them yet because I haven't got a stone to drop. You can look at your stones and it'll tell you where to give you extra points, but doing the 2 will give you 4 points. And what I invested in was just a bit more survivability, and this one gives you more spirit based on your energy and evasion, so it just allows you to run a little more buffs. And what you really will want is this one. Now this one gives you chill main too, but this one just gives you a flat extra 10% cold damage on top of the rest of your damage. So it is a 10% increase, but it allows you to start being able to freeze stuff passively and generate those power charges more easily. And you can pair that with this one that gives you another 5% extra cold damage and more freeze buildup as you go. And then you'll start seeing that you can proc your charge staff and start freezing stuff passively with it without having any cold damage on any of your gear whatsoever, because it just gains you that extra cold damage from these passively. But that's it. I mean, and then you'll start wanting to grab stuff that's, you know, elemental based. You can go elemental damage for shield because we freeze stuff. We can go elemental damage for shock because we shock stuff. And I'm gonna, and there goes my phone again. I'm gonna try to throw fire on there so we can get another 30% for igniting stuff. Yeah, it just kind of all builds together, and you can kind of screenshot and I'm still working on it. Like, I'm only level 64 at the moment, so I still have a lot of skills to go that I really need. And at some point you'll start, like me, like my build is very mana hungry, so you really want to invest in some mana conservation on stuff. And you'll start hunting out the nodes that give you the most dex and the most intellect, because you just need so very much. And that's it. I feel like I'm forgetting half the stuff here because there's just so much stuff to go over. But that's kind of it. That was my progression guide, or progression, I guess you would say. It's just the kind of skills that I touched on, used, you know, kind of
frozen locusts will
turn that back off. Kind of got out of using and currently am using and are working towards. Now, my next step is going to be adding in Herald of Ice, so that when I'm freezing stuff, I'm exploding it, and I'm proccing Herald of Thunder too, so I can have two separate sources of crowd control. That's just going to be nuts about the damage. I'm hoping, I mean, currently I'm not struggling, but that's the next step in the build. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. Like, Glacial Cascade, first two will carry you. First two chapters, so basically you'll be using this to kill everything boss fights, because it's just the best range you've got. Pair that with Tempest Spell, you need, of course, you'll have these basically base, and then, you know, you'll upgrade to one of these two, kind of maker's choice here, lightning or ice. Ice is far easier to proc power charges on. And then you want to swap out Storm Wave for for Glacial Cascade, just because the DPS is much higher on it. And kind of go from there and start working on your passive buffs and stuff like that. And the most recent one that I've invested in, and I really like this, because I just got my final permanent spirit upgrade, which allowed me to do this, which is Ghost Dance here. And what it does is it regens 5% based upon your evade of your energy shield every time you take a hit, and it will stack up to 4 stacks. So it's just a passive regen. Like, every time you take a hit, you'll regenerate a set amount of your shield, your energy shield, and as your evasion rating goes up, the amount that you recover goes up with it. So really, really good survivability skill. I've noticed a huge difference since I've started running it. And as far as support gems, I just threw in 30% less effect duration, because it actually lowers the time that it takes between charges to build. And I threw this one in there just because a little more accuracy never hurts anything. But that's basically it. That's where the guide is at the moment. Now, as far as staffs, I wound up getting a pretty good one to roll here. You'll want to stack as much physical damage as possible, because all your skills scale off physical damage. That's why I have 40% extra physical. This one rolled with 87% extra physical. Now, it would have been better if it would have rolled with a flat physical instead of the fire damage. That minuscule amount of fire damage really isn't doing anything. But this one actually rolled with 74% elemental damage increased with attack 2, which is pretty great. And then it's got some life leech. The 22% attack speed is just incredible, but it makes this thing a mana monster. And you pair that attack speed, I've come to find attack speed is probably the biggest DPS boost in the game, period. Because when you start stacking up attack boost, like more attack speed, more attack speed, more attack speed, more attack speed, and then in the skills on Tempest Flurry, I've got more attack speed, you know what I mean, and then close combat and 100% more chance of shock. But if you put all attack speed together, it is absolutely crazy. I know. Yeah, I'll just give you a kind of demo of where I'm at and what the build looks like, what you're kind of working towards, and how I usually play it. And I will be going into Act 3 here, so it's comparable. I'm not just running through low-level stuff trying to make the build look good. But here, we'll go to Agzlock Bog. Now, this place has a tremendous amount of enemy density on it. I love this map, but you can get overwhelmed extremely easily, especially at this difficulty level. Oh, another quick tip that I didn't really show, that I found out the hard way. When you get on this on PlayStation, click square to see if they're active or not. If you accidentally, and as you slot your passive gems into these, it actually ups the amount of spirit that they take. So if you've got 60 and you're running 2 of these, if you socket something in here, see this one here consumes 10% more spirit. That's why this one's taking 40. You have to pay attention. You can put stuff in it like this, just makes it require 5 more strength. But if you put this one in here and you only have 60 spirit, this is going to deactivate one of your skills. It'll no longer be working. So you just have to kind of pay attention to what the extra one. See, this one requires +5 dex to the skill, which is fine. But if you socketed something else in here that requires 10 more spirit than you have, it's going to automatically deactivate it, and it won't even give you a notification. And then you'll be getting into the level figuring out the hard way that stuff isn't working. I did it myself. But yeah, see if we can find us a group of enemies. So yeah, you want to start out with a freeze, and you can only do a freeze like every 2.5 seconds. That's why having some electrocution would be better. So freeze, see there we spawn 2. Freeze, and then we spawn 2, and we didn't consume them, so now we've got 2, and now we're up to our 5, and I forgot to add some quality to that. You add quality to your charge staff. As you can see, when you need a charge, and we're kind of passively generating charges now, so if the stuff doesn't die too quickly, like I said, I need some more mana management. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the basis of the build. As you can see, you can just walk through groups like they're not even there. And honestly, my staff is kind of under leveled. I'm not doing near as much damage, but yeah, they're out of freeze. They didn't freeze, they died too quickly. Get freeze. But yeah, you can only generate off of freeze like every 2.5 seconds, so there's no use in doing more than 1 per group. Freeze, get your charges, and then just walk through them. And as you can see, the attack speed is unreal on this thing. But yeah, and the other thing was quality. You can actually click R3 and it will show you what additional quality will do for your skills. For Falling Thunder, it has up to a 10% chance to not remove charges, which would be really good, something I'll invest in later on. You see, I haven't added slots to all of mine yet. I've kind of been lazy, but that's something I also need to do. But Charge Staff is really good to go 20% quality on because it has a 20% increased effect duration, and that's per charge. So with full 20% on it, and I've currently got 5 charges. You can have up to 7, I think, but at 5 I'm getting like 51 seconds, almost a full minute once I get the 5 charges put into it. So really it cuts down on a lot of that maintenance, and you do generate charges from hitting the bell and freezing it. So even in boss fights you can generate charges very quickly. And let's see, right here, this is the one I picked up for power charges. You gain 2 from this, and there's a couple more nodes. You can get a couple other ones that I haven't made it to yet. But that's kind of it. I feel like I probably forgot half the stuff that I meant to mention in this video. But that's just kind of my monk progression. Just try to keep your equipment as leveled up as possible. Focus on physical damage on your staff. Focus on evasion rating and energy shield on your build, because there is just so many passives that benefit. And also, like, this is one of the best. You gain 1 energy shield per 12 evasion rating on your equipped body armor. I mean, evasion rating, more evasion rating. You can just stack so much evasion rating on your gear that it's crazy. I mean, evasion rating, more evasion, you know. There's just so many passives to make you so much more survivable from your evasion rating. That's why evasion energy shield is really kind of broken on monk. If you're running anything else, you'll feel too squishy. But that's basically it. I was going to try not to go too in-depth in it, because like I said, I don't think that there's a set build guide for monk in this game, because you can go basically any direction you want. But this is just kind of where I've been headed. I've been watching other people's videos and kind of taking the best I can from that. But yeah, I mean, it's getting really strong, and you can just walk through the cruel difficulty content like it's not even there. I mean, I'm melting bosses in under 5 seconds without even trying. But that's it. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, leave in the comments. I'm sure I've missed a ton of stuff, so if you need to know anything, just send me a message. And as always, thanks for watching.